Okay, today's pretty special. We have got Josh Talge from Titleist. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you guys for having me on. I'm coming to you live from the Titleist Tour truck. So if you hear any noise, it's because we've got a working machine here at the 3M Championship in Minnesota. So I'm joined. I've got Larry Silvera, who is one of our key fitters. You see Larry back here. Larry has the distinction of also being a PGA Tour winner, which is a pretty neat deal. So you've got not only a terrific player, but somebody who really can fit all of our golf clubs. Peter Bazook is right back here. He's mixing up some epoxy right now. He's building clubs. He's probably building some irons, which we're going to talk about. And then our guy, hardest working guy in golf, is right back here, Aaron Dill. We put him in his own little glass cage, not a glass cage of emotions, but Aaron's got so much grinding that he does that it's nice to be able to give him his own space. And so we've got a big crew out here for the 3M. And as we were saying, we're just kind of getting into our irons launch. It's been very popular, so we've got a lot of players continuing to test and to switch out into new products.
Awesome. Well, I couldn't think of a better venue for you right now, well, for us right now, and we really appreciate you and all your guys their time to spend with us. We're really excited. T100, T150, T200, T350. So there's some new naming this year, which obviously gives us some idea. There might be some different tech or some different concepts. And I guess the tough one, and I think Mark will say this with sales, is we've done so well with Titleist irons over the years that everyone's always a little scared about changes because we don't want it to change too much. We love them.
Yeah, just give you a little feedback too. I mean, we've always sold Titleist irons, for better players and stuff for the last, 30 years or whatever. I played Titleist, most of the time I played golf. But, we've sold, he's been one of our top sellers, but, Callaway and TaylorMade always win in the higher end stuff. But the last couple of years, that T300 has been probably one of our number one sellers. It's actually, touched Callaway and TaylorMade and beat them in a couple of times. It's not just for better players anymore, Titleist. And everything you've done the last couple of years.
I appreciate you saying that.
Big improvement.
We certainly appreciate that. That's certainly been our goal, is to bring all the great features and benefits, really, when you think about what we develop for the best players in the world. But the rest of us need that help too. And so that's been a goal of Marnie Inez and the entire R&D design team for irons. And I think that this is the most complete lineup we've ever had. As you look, Jack, you mentioned, we've got T100, T150, T200, and T350. We think we've got a heck of a lineup. We certainly have seen it being very well received out of the tour ranks. And then we've started to fit some of our staff professionals and other kind of brand ambassadors. And again, it's just been a home run. And I know you guys do a tremendous amount of testing on your own.
Right.
And so it's been fun to be able to hear from you about what are you seeing? What are you hearing?
Well,
and it's really backing up a lot of the work we've tried to design in.
Yeah, absolutely. We ran all the tests, and we'll do a separate podcast and reveal all those numbers and stuff at some point. But we've actually just kind of put together the center hits and stuff real quick to take a look at it and stuff. And, the numbers look really good. And I guess, part of the philosophy, I guess, is to talk about, blending sets this time around. And I'm a huge fan of that. I've played a blended set of irons for probably 90% of the last 30 years, one set or another, kind of mix them together. And it's great to see a company actually kind of focus on that and make the clubs that are designed for that. If you look at, I'm staring at actually the data that we got from them, but the 100, goes about 150 yards at 80 miles an hour, right? The 150 goes 158 carry, the 200 goes 163, and there's a light little progression between them, so it's pretty easy to blend. Same thing with launch angles; they come down a little bit, and spin rate comes down a little bit. But it's awesome to be able to mix all those things and not have any big gaps and stuff. And that's one of the things you did this year. You didn't jack the lofts up a bunch or anything like that, but you've actually, and the spin rate we got on, this might be just lucky, but the spin rate we got on the spin launch is the number we use, which is spin divided by launch. And the spin launch on the 150 and the 100 are identical, so they're exactly the same sort of flight. And that wasn't the case in the past, obviously. When you jump clubs, you change launch and spin numbers, and it looks like these are really well engineered to do that.
Yeah, well, we certainly, and Mark, you and I were chatting about this just prior to us jumping on this call. Our focus is around 3Ds when it comes to iron performance as well as iron fitting. And they really go hand in hand. So the 3Ds we look for are, number one, really good consistent carry distance. And I'll come back to that in a second, because for T100, that's something that the best players in the world are really looking for. So they don't want to see any variability in that distance. They want to know my stock 8-iron flies this far, and they want that to happen each and every time. So we really focus on, almost for that product, spin consistency to really make sure we're giving them that consistent distance. Then as we get into our second D, it's about dispersion. How do we get you tighter to your, closer to your target more often? And I joke with our teams that if we could, we would test every single iron on an island green, right? Where left is bad, right's bad, short's bad, long's bad, and it's just as bad if you hit it and roll over. So that really gets us to our third D, which is descent angle. And we like to see the ball coming out of the sky at 45 degrees or more. Now, not every player's got enough speed to quite get there, but a lot of them do. And we want to get you to be able to launch that ball as high as you can so it comes out of the sky and it stops. And if we can design golf clubs to be able to do those 3 Ds, then we look for, and I think you guys do the same thing. I know you've got such great fitters. We look for 5-mile-an-hour ball speed gaps between each of the irons in your bag. And what we see is even the best players in the world, like a Justin Thomas or Max Homa, eventually they hit a breaking point where they can't hit those 3 Ds with the 5-mile-an-hour ball speed gaps with their current 7-iron. They need a different chassis. So Max Homa, he switches as he gets to the 5-iron. He goes blade through 6, and then he goes up to a T100 in his 5-iron. And then he makes actually a jump into T150 for his 4-iron, and then he's got a T200 3-iron that he put in play for the Open Championship. So each one of them can really play a role in your bag.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And we look at that all the time. Obviously, you want each club to go a different distance so that they're all spread out. It doesn't do you any good to have clubs that go the same distance. And you're right. And 3Ds kind of makes a lot of sense to me because I'm looking at kind of, our test data is in front of me. You can't see it. But, we do something called an overall rating, which we're looking at dispersion, which is how tight the circle is on mishits and stuff. We do we call a tour rating, which is based on spin consistency, just off center, right around the center. And then we obviously have a stopping power one, which is measuring how fast the thing stops, just descent angle and some, spin, and obviously it's decayed some before it lands. But those 3 things we look at. So we definitely agree with you. Those are the important ones.
Great. Well, hopefully I can't see the data, but hopefully we scored well, especially when it comes to that spin consistency. So one of the things we did differently across this entire lineup was we wanted to focus on that, and we're fortunate. I showed Aaron back here bending away, working on ledges, but our coaching team really leads the world when it comes to spin mill groups, right? I mean, you've heard that SM, we're up into SM9 as part of our product line now, and really that focuses on how can we treat the grooves so we're going to get that consistent spin each and every time. Well, we stole that same idea from the wedge team and incorporated that onto our irons this time. So we've got a new way that we're fly cutting and making sure that the faces are really flat, really consistent, and we've got a great groove to get those spin windows just really tight so that each and every time you hit that 6-iron, you're going to get a spin rate very, very similar.
Awesome. Well, that is going to score high on our consistency rating, the consistency test.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly sounds like our consistency test, or our tour rating that we do on irons is actually we hit the dead center, we go 1/4 inch, heel and toe and up and down, so pretty much the middle of the golf club. And obviously the center, and we score, how consistent the spin stays as it moves around the center. So it'll be really interesting. I imagine you're going to do pretty well in that group.
I hope so. Yeah, we're excited to see how well we do.
So, Josh, can you give us a little insight? Obviously, you don't want to go too much into the past, but where this line has come from last year, the key changes to it, what players should expect. I've been a T100S player. So, it was just a little mental challenge for me to go, okay, well, what is my club this year? Maybe expand on how you got where you got.
Yeah, I'd love to. I'm going to go in numeric order just for ease of use for me. So I'll start with T100. And T100, we call it the modern tour iron. It's played by more touring professionals than any other club in the world. And that's not any Titleist club, that's any club, period. It is just exceptionally popular. And it's popular because it looks like a blade, and it plays like a game improvement iron for the best players in the world. It looks great. It feels great. It's exceptionally consistent. And so the key changes that we focused on this time were, as we mentioned, how can we give you really good spin consistency? How can we actually improve feel? And feel was something that we looked at across the entire lineup, but that's so important to not only the best players in the world, but to each and every one of us that are playing golf, as feel really does help you determine which irons you are going to end up going home with. And the hard part with T100 is JJ Van Wiesenbeck, who heads up our PGA Tour team, and I provide a lot of information to our R&D teams. And we did have to kind of put them in a box because we're like, we know what the shape is. We know what the performance is. Any player playing T100, they don't want to hit it any further than they did before. And I think your testing probably showed that it was exactly the same. What they want is they want that consistency to be even tighter than it was in the past. But we knew we had shape. We knew we had overall performance. How could we make it even more consistent? And how could we improve the feel? And so we did a few things on the feel. We strengthened that back bar. Really were able to improve feel a little bit from that. And these minor things we look at, we removed the chamfer on the trailing edge of the sole. And it's very minor to see. But boy, it makes a big difference because when you get rid of an edge, it's almost like a hard edge or like a grind that you would have on a wedge. You make things just a little softer. Softer is smoother, and smoother is faster. And that's what we're finding from players. They're in and out of the turf even faster.
On the T100, by the way, we got exactly the same distance, a tiny bit less spin, which is a good thing because it was the highest spin, one of the highest spinning clubs we had out there, and a little bit higher launch. So I mean that's perfect, right? So if you can raise the launch a little bit and lower the spin for control, a tiny bit on that particular iron, but exactly the same distance. So I don't see that's going to be super easy for you guys and help you on tour when you got to switch them out. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's very, very well said. Thank you. As we move up, the 150 is a new product for us. So the inspiration for 150 was we've had so much success with T100. We had a few players though, whether they're tour players, but most of the case, Jack, it was players that, like you and I who had played AP2s and really loved them and thought, boy, T100 just looks a little bit too small. And so we challenged the R&D team. What can we do to kind of split the difference between a T100 and a T200? We still want all the great feel and overall shape of T100, but we do need to make it just a little bit bigger. And so what you'll see with T150 are a couple of key things. Number one, you'll notice just a tiny bit thicker top line and just a little bit wider sole. It's actually perfectly in between 100 and 200. That's the name, 150.
Right.
The other thing that you'll realize is it's 2 degrees stronger than T100. Same as T100S was, again, designed to be 2 degrees stronger because that turf interaction I just mentioned on T100 is so important to us, and that maintains as we get to T150. We want to make sure that very in, out of the turf is very easy for players. But I think of this as, hey, this is the modern tour iron with speed because you get just a couple degrees stronger, a little bit more speed, and I'm guessing, Mark, as you look at your numbers, you've got them on screen. I don't. I bet it went just a little bit further.
That's exactly right. It went a yard and a half, so 2 yards longer. Yep. Spin dropped.
And that's
spin is actually up a little bit, which is great because it was lower.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's exactly what happens.
And that's just what that player is looking for. And whether that player is going to use that in the low end of their set or even in the high end of their set if they're a T100 player in low irons, it just gives them that little bit of reassurance of what they're looking for. Then as we go to a T200, T200 is interesting in that we didn't change the dimensions one bit. We had a great shape, but we really needed to focus on feel. The feel of prior gen T200s was fine, but we're not on a quest for fine. We're on a quest for great. How do we make this feel, really like a tour played product? And so Marnie Yanez and team completely redid everything on the inside of that product. And I'm happy to report that not only are we seeing great ball speed, really good launch, good spin conditions, but most importantly, the feel is significantly improved. When we bring a long iron to a tour player here and have them hit old versus new, it's the easiest switch we've seen. In fact, we've had a handful of guys. I remember Bo Hostler, our first week, we were at the Memorial. He hit one shot and walked back, and he shook Marty's hand and just said, "Good job." And he was so excited about how great it felt.
I got to tell you, that's exactly what I'm kind of saying. I tried the two. I played with these a little while last year, and I really liked them. They didn't feel great, especially when you hit the back of the balls on the driving range, whatever. They didn't sound bad when you hit them, but it wasn't fantastic. Everything else was great. I mean, the performance was great. They looked good. So I'm ecstatic. I mean, if you fix that as well, and the cosmetics look a little better, quite a bit, actually. The top line looks, thin-ish, not crazy looking, that's scary. But everything else you did on the cosmetics looks so super clean. Looks like a forged club.
Yeah, thank you. That was really the goal was we're proud of our brand in Titleist, and we stand for so many great things in performance. And we thought, why wouldn't we make Titleist a bigger part of this? And as you think of, we are born of tour. We've been very tour authentic as a brand. Our MB, all it has on there is the brand name Titleist, just the iconic script. Yep. And we wanted to bring that to life across the rest of our lineup. And you see that even as you get into T350. So T350 is our ultimate game improvement iron. It replaces T300. And I think this is going to just be a massive step up for so many of the players who come and see you. What we've seen from a different standpoint is we describe this iron as high, far, and forgiving, and that's exactly what it does. I'm really excited with this. This is a big step for us. I think that here's just one quick story on that. We met with our sales team, our U.S. sales team, about a month ago, and we fit everybody on day one. And the next day, Marty and I are on stage talking to them about our new products. And I asked for a show of hands of the 150 people in the audience, how many were playing at least one T300 iron? I think there were maybe 15 brave souls that raised their hand. And I said, okay, how about yesterday you guys just did your fitting? How many of you have at least one T350 in your bag now? And it was almost half the audience. About 75 people put their hand in the air.
Wow. And
that to me really showed the level of fit and finish that we've put into this iron. That our group, like I think you guys probably do the same thing. The best group you can ask are people who love golf, who are obsessed with golf, in and around it all the time. And certainly that's going to be our U.S. sales team. And so they love the product. We're excited about it. I think we just got this great blendability. And Mark, you mentioned how important it is to blend sets. The guys out here on tour, over 80% of our PGA Tour pros have a blended iron set.
That's a staggering number.
It is regular. Exactly. That's why we're throwing it out there,
right,
because
exactly.
we think that if these guys play their best golf that way, why wouldn't the rest of us?
Yeah.
I actually want to touch on two things there. I think the 350, maybe obviously 150 being a new product entirely and 350 being closed in, that's a big change that I really like. And obviously I think that's going to perform, like sound and feel will change a little bit with the whole closed body now rather than the cavity in the back. We done so well with that. I expect us to do.
We did so well with the T300 that, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if this was #1 selling clubbook for us next year.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah, it's pretty
because
exciting.
it looks so clean, and we did so well with the 350, the 300. So
yeah,
I can't see us not knocking this one out of the park.
And then going into the combo in, and this is only going to help our sales. Is what a fun story for us is we got one of our great guys in inventory, Chris. I said, how did you go in your Titleist session when he was getting fit for all the products? He said, I got a real mix. I said, hit me with it. So he went with a 4-iron, I think, in the U505. Then he dropped into a 350.
Right.
Then he dropped into the 200, and then he ended up in the bottom of the bag in the 150. So he went everywhere with the set.
Okay.
I'm excited to see what that turns into.
Yeah, that's really great. And we don't always see it be that dramatic, but boy, it's good to see the majority of our early fits have gone mixed bag because we know they're going to play better.
Right. I definitely would think about putting this 350 in the long iron.
Yeah,
just
it's
a 4-iron or something would be really fun to have.
It comes out hot. I can tell you, I was hitting some and hitting the 7-irons over 200 yards with that thing.
Oh my!
It's pretty good fun.
Well, I won't have that problem.
So
the guys got them out on tour. Have you got any fun tour stories with some players having some good success already?
Yeah, I would highlight Tom Kim is one of the first players who switched in.
Oh wow!
We saw him at the Memorial. He put them in play at the U.S. Open. Ended up shooting a 29 on his front nine Saturday at the U.S. Open, so scoring record, which is pretty cool around LACC. And then he just had another terrific week at Hoylake at Royal Liverpool that just finished the other day. And so we've seen quite a few players. Cameron Smith, another player who put him in for the first week at the U.S. Open. He finished, I believe it was T3, maybe T5. So has really had a lot of success. You saw Cameron Young chasing up the leaderboard at the Open Championship. He was a player who switched right away. This past week, we saw Jordan Spieth put in a T150 3-iron with a graphite design DI shaft.
Huh.
I mentioned Max Homa put in, he tested both a 3-iron and a 2-iron in T200, kind of replaced his 7-wood for the week. Just felt like he had a ton of control. So we've seen just tremendous uptake, and it's really fun when the guys get excited about new stuff, and we're obviously very excited about it as well.
Well, the tour discussion's always a fun one because I think getting guys into a new driver, is simple, more simple.
It's
should I
relatively
say.
easy. They hit longer and straighter, they're good.
Yeah, one club. But then when you've got to change a guy's full deck and they know their numbers through the bag and their comboing, like that's a big undertaking from you guys to be able to support that. So for them to make the switch, it must be pretty clean out off the rack. They know what they're going to get.
I think one of the things that makes it easier for our guys, Jack, is that we spend so much time testing with them throughout product life cycles. And so we are always leveraging our global tours for our next product designs. We're showing them shapes really early. We're testing out different types of soles really early. And so it's very common, whether it's on the PGA Tour or other tours, that we bring a prototype out and let players hit it very early so they get a sense of what things are doing. And we get great feedback then throughout our 2-year life cycle of our product. So we know where to go for the next gen and the generation after that.
Well, I'm looking forward to us to do our podcast. We're going to do a podcast on the robot testing. I'll send it through to you to make sure that it's all good before it goes out for sure.
I'm sure it did well. We're pretty confident in our product. And I would I echo for your audience, please go see you guys. Go get fit. Our stuff's pretty good off the shelf, but boy, when you partner with really good tools and a great fitter, you're going to play your best golf. And I think that's where you're going to find your way into those mixed sets that we just talked about and really enjoying your iron performance, because irons are going to help you score significantly better. I think that's been proven out now with all the advanced metrics out there that your iron game really has such a direct correlation to scoring well.
A big difference between a 5-foot putt and a 20-foot putt, that's for sure.
And I think that's a really a good thing, and maybe what still gives you guys some of the edge in the iron space, and coming from that tour background, is that knowledge of what's required from an iron. And I'm not bagging any other company here, but there's certainly been a hunt for distance in irons over the time. Right. And although that's one of your Ds, I know that descent angle and dispersion are maybe more integral for the majority of golfers.
Yeah, we're just trying to help educate golfers on that all the time. Is that you're not doing a driver fitting, you're just looking for raw total distance. You really need to get close to your target more often with irons, and that's how we design our irons, and that's how we want to fit them. That's why we've got great partners like Cool Clubs where we're looking to do that. So thank you guys. It's really been fun to spend a little time chatting about it.
Great that you're on the van as well. Say thanks to all the guys for biting a bit out of your morning, and hopefully you get some players through today and swap them into some new irons.
Oh yeah, we're gonna have a great week. We've already seen several guys. Larry's been doing some fitting, and we've had Pete building clubs already. So it'll be a great week here at the 3M Championship.
We really appreciate your time, Josh. Thank you, mate.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.